My beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, today I want to remind myself and every one of you about something very important: the house of Allah, the Masjid. We live in a world full of distractions, temptations, and trials, yet Allah has blessed us with places of peace and light, the Masjid. These are not ordinary buildings. They are the heart of the Muslim community, the source of spiritual strength, and the means of connecting with our Creator. Therefore, never turn away from the Masjid. Never leave the Masjid, because leaving it means leaving behind a great portion of your faith. Let us understand this through 6 important points. The Masjid, being the house of Allah, is one of the greatest honors that has been granted to the believers. When a Muslim enters the Masjid, they are not just stepping into a building of bricks and mortar, but they are walking into a place chosen by Allah Himself as a sanctuary for His remembrance. Imagine the privilege of being able to walk into a place loved by Allah. The Prophet has clearly told us that the most beloved places to Allah are the Masajid, and this should be enough to awaken our hearts. If we think deeply, everything we own, everything we are surrounded by belongs to Allah. Yet out of all the places in this world, He declared the Masjid as His special house. When a believer sits in the Masjid, even in silence, he is not considered idle. Angels write down his presence as an act of worship. The reward is so immense that even waiting for prayer in the Masjid counts as being in prayer itself. Subhanallah, what generosity from Allah! When you go to visit someone important in this world, you prepare yourself, you dress well, and you feel honored just to be admitted into their presence. Now think, the King of Kings, the Lord of the worlds, has invited you 5 times a day to come to His house. He doesn't need us, but we are the ones in need of Him, His forgiveness and His blessings. Every adhan is a call from Allah saying, "Come to my house, leave your distractions, leave your worries, and come stand before me." If you respond, your name is written among those who honor Allah. But if you ignore, you are turning away from an invitation from your Creator. What could be more dangerous for the soul than rejecting the very place Allah loves the most? The Masjid is also where hearts become alive. You can feel the difference when you enter. The noise of the world is left outside and a calmness fills your chest. Even if your life is full of stress, debts, and problems, once you enter the Masjid and bow down to Allah, you taste a peace that no wealth can buy. The house of Allah is not just a place of worship, it is a hospital for broken hearts. Many people enter feeling burdened and leave feeling lighter because they remembered Allah in His house. When you prostrate in the Masjid, you are at the lowest position physically, but at the highest spiritually, because your forehead is placed on the earth in the most beloved place to Allah. Think also of the honor that Allah has given to those whose hearts are attached to the Masjid. On the day of judgment, when there will be no shade except the shade of Allah, one of the people granted this special shade will be the one whose heart was attached to the Masjid. Such a person longs to return even after leaving, because their soul feels at home there. This is the true meaning of the Masjid being the house of Allah. It is a place of love, mercy, forgiveness, and safety for the believer in this world and the next. Outside the Masjid, the world is full of distractions, temptations, and traps of shaitan. A believer who distances himself from the Masjid slowly becomes weak in his faith because the environment outside constantly pulls him towards sins. But when a person makes the masjid his regular place, it acts like a shield, protecting his iman and keeping him steadfast. The salah performed in congregation inside the masjid is not just an obligation fulfilled, but it is a spiritual training that keeps the soul alive and the heart clean. Allah Almighty has clearly mentioned in the Quran, indeed, prayer prohibits immorality and wrongdoing. This means that every time we pray, especially in the masjid, we are building a defense system inside ourselves against sins. It becomes harder for Shaitan to deceive someone who is consistent in visiting the house of Allah. On the other hand, when a person neglects the masjid, he becomes an easy target, falling into habits and sins that ruin both his dunya and akhirah. Think of it like this: if you have a device, you need to charge it regularly to keep it running. Without charging, the battery dies and the device becomes useless. Similarly, the heart of a believer needs to be charged with salah in the masjid. Every salah in congregation gives energy to the heart, cleans the soul, and brings barakah in life. Missing the masjid is like leaving your soul without charge. It slowly dies. Many people wonder why they struggle to give up sins, why they feel weak against desires, why their hearts feel heavy and empty. The answer often lies in their connection with the masjid. The more distant a person is from the masjid, the weaker their resistance against haram becomes. Inside the masjid, there is a special atmosphere that pulls you towards good deeds. You see people reciting Quran, making dhikr, bowing down in salah, and listening to reminders. This environment inspires your heart and pushes you to improve yourself. But outside, the environment may be music, gossip, haram activities, and useless talk. Naturally, the soul is affected by what surrounds it. That is why staying connected to the masjid ensures that the environment around you is one of purity, guiding you away from sin. Another beautiful protection that the masjid gives is through brotherhood. When you regularly attend the masjid, you meet people who remind you of Allah. They encourage you towards good and stop you from wrong. If you start slipping into sin, your masjid companions pull you back. But when you abandon the masjid, you cut yourself off from these reminders, and slowly Shaitan isolates you until sin becomes easy. This is why the Prophet emphasized congregational prayer, because it protects the believer. He compared the one who prays in congregation to a sheep among the flock, safe from the wolf, while the one who separates is like a lonely sheep, easily attacked. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, the masjid is not only a place to fulfill rituals, it is a fortress of iman, a shield against sin, and a light that keeps the believer safe in a dark world. Leaving it means exposing yourself to dangers, but holding on to it means holding on to the rope of Allah that will protect you in this life and the next. The masjid has always been more than just a place of prayer. It is the school of the believer, the center of learning and spiritual growth. From the earliest days of Islam, the masjid was the place where the Prophet taught his companions, where Quran was recited, memorized, and explained, and where the principles of faith were instilled into the hearts of the believers. It was not only a space for worship, but also a university for the soul, where knowledge, wisdom, and guidance were shared. When a Muslim comes to the masjid, he is not just praying, but he is also exposing his heart to light, his mind to knowledge, and his soul to purification. To abandon the masjid is to abandon one of the greatest sources of learning and growth in a believer's life. Inside the masjid, reminders are given that keep a person's faith alive. A single khatba or lecture heard in the masjid can change the direction of a person's life. The Quran is recited in the masjid in a way that melts the heart, reminding people of their purpose and their duty towards Allah. You may enter the masjid feeling weak, doubtful, or distracted, but the words of Allah and the lessons shared there cleanse the heart and bring clarity. This is why scholars throughout Islamic history always remained connected to the masjid, because they understood that true knowledge is not just information. It is a light from Allah that descends upon the hearts of those who sit in His house seeking guidance. The masjid also nurtures the character of a believer. In the masjid, one learns humility by standing shoulder to shoulder with others, no matter their status. One learns discipline by praying on time, again and again in unity with the congregation. One learns patience by listening, waiting, and respecting the sanctity of the place. These lessons cannot be bought in classrooms or universities. They are taught naturally within the walls of the masjid. A person who grows up with the masjid as his school becomes a person of balance, wisdom, and humility. In addition, the masjid is a place where children and youth are educated in the best way. When parents bring their children to the masjid, they expose them to the Quran, to Salah, and to the company of righteous people. These experiences shape their identity and protect them from being lost in the world outside. Many great scholars of Islam began their journeys sitting in the circles of knowledge held in the masjid. They did not just learn rules, but they absorbed the spirit of faith and dedication to Allah. Leaving the masjid, however, deprives a person of this lifelong education. Without the masjid, reminders are missed, knowledge is forgotten, and hearts become hardened. The masjid is not just a school for the young, but a lifelong teacher for every stage of life. Those who attach themselves to it keep learning, keep growing, and keep polishing their hearts until they meet Allah with hearts full of light. The masjid is the beating heart of Muslim unity, the place where differences dissolve and the true meaning of brotherhood is experienced. When believers stand in prayer, shoulder to shoulder, with no gap between them, it does not matter whether one is rich or poor, whether one has a high position in society or works a simple job, whether one is Arab or non-Arab, black or white, old or young, everyone stands equal before Allah. This equality is a powerful reminder that we are one Ummah, one body, united under the declaration of La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. No worldly gathering can ever achieve the level of unity that the masjid establishes 5 times a day. To leave the masjid is to cut oneself off from this powerful sense of belonging and community that strengthens faith. The masjid not only unites people in prayer, but also brings hearts together in compassion and care. When someone is missing, people in the masjid notice. When someone is ill, the masjid community asks about them, prays for them, and often supports them. This sense of mutual care is a safety net for every Muslim, ensuring that no one is left alone in their struggles. Without the masjid, a person may feel isolated, unnoticed, and unsupported, but with it, they become part of a family that shares both joy and pain. This is the beauty of the masjid. It teaches us that we are responsible for one another. In the masjid, social barriers collapse. A person who may never interact with someone of a different background in their daily life will find themselves standing side by side with them in Salah, bound together by faith. This breaks pride, kills arrogance, and softens hearts. The world teaches division, racism, and class differences, but the Masjid reminds us of the reality that in the sight of Allah, the most honored is the one with the most taqwa, not the one with wealth or power. By leaving the Masjid, we allow these worldly divisions to dominate, but by staying connected, we constantly remind ourselves of the equality and brotherhood that Islam came to establish. The Masjid also plays a central role in uniting Muslims for collective worship and action. The Friday prayer is a prime example. An entire community gathering once a week to listen to the khutbah, to be reminded of Allah and to pray together. This collective worship energizes the community and revives their spirit. Similarly, Eid prayers, Taraweeh in Ramadan, and other congregational events bring Muslims together in a way that no other gathering can. These moments create bonds of love and unity that extend beyond the walls of the Masjid into daily life. On the Day of Judgment, one of the 7 categories of people promised Allah's shade will be those whose hearts were attached to the Masjid. Why? Because being attached to the Masjid means being attached to the unity of the Ummah. It means loving not only Allah but also His servants. Those who make the Masjid their second home are the ones who build bonds of brotherhood that please Allah. Therefore, leaving the Masjid means losing this unity, but holding on to it means strengthening ties that will benefit us in this world and intercede for us in the next. On the Day of Judgment, when every person will stand before Allah desperately seeking salvation, the Masjid will become a witness for those who honored it in this world. The Quran and the Sunnah teach us that everything will testify on that day: our hands, our tongues, our eyes, even the earth beneath us. Imagine then the ground of the Masjid speaking on your behalf, saying, "O Allah, this servant prostrated upon me, this servant bowed before you on me, this servant recited Quran upon me." What greater testimony can a person ask for than the testimony of the most beloved place to Allah? Every sujood you made, every tear you shed, every dhikr you whispered in the Masjid will not be lost. It will be recorded and presented on the day when deeds are weighed. The Prophet 8 told us that every step towards the Masjid carries a reward. One sin is erased, and one good deed is written, and one rank is raised. Think about it. Before you even reach the Masjid, Allah has already forgiven some of your sins and increased your status. When you sit waiting for prayer, the angels pray for you, saying, "O Allah, forgive him. O Allah, have mercy on him." If this is the reward while you are alive, how much more will it be multiplied when those deeds are presented before Allah on the Day of Judgment? The Masjid will be like a lawyer defending you, saying, "This person filled me with worship and never abandoned me." But for the one who ignored the Masjid, it may stand against them, testifying, "This servant neglected me, passed by me, and never came except rarely." Another honor linked to the Masjid on that day is light. The Prophet A said, "Give glad tidings to those who walk to the Masjid in the dark of the night, that they will have complete light on the day of resurrection." This means that those who valued the Masjid when it was difficult, when it was dark, when others were asleep, will be walking on the Day of Judgment with shining light while others are stumbling in darkness. This light will guide them across the Sirat, the bridge over hellfire, and lead them to Jannah. Without the masjid, without those steps of sacrifice, how will a person find that light in the akhirah? Think also about the love of Allah for those attached to the masjid. The Prophet A mentioned among the 7 types of people who will be shaded by Allah on the day of judgment. A man whose heart is attached to the masjid. This is because the one who longs for the masjid shows love for the house of Allah. And in return, Allah honors him with shade when there is no other shade. It is a powerful reminder that your relationship with the masjid in this world determines your relationship with safety and honor in the next. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, never underestimate the value of even a single prayer in the masjid. Every step, every prostration, every moment spent there is preparing witnesses for you, light for you, and honor for you in the hereafter. To abandon the masjid is to lose this testimony, but to hold on to it is to guarantee that on the most difficult day, you will not stand alone. For the masjid will be speaking in your favor before Allah. Life without the masjid is like a body without a soul. A believer who keeps himself distant from the house of Allah will often feel emptiness, restlessness, and unease in his heart, even if he owns all the wealth and comforts of this world. This is because true peace does not come from material things. It comes from the remembrance of Allah. The masjid is the home of remembrance, the place where the heart finds tranquility, as Allah has said in the Quran. Indeed, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. When a person makes the masjid his second home, he finds that his worldly worries become lighter, his sadness eases, and his heart is filled with calmness that cannot be experienced elsewhere. The masjid gives peace in this world, and Allah has promised that it will give light in the hereafter. The Prophet gave glad tidings to those who walk to the masjid in darkness that they will be granted complete light on the day of judgment. Think about this in this world. Walking to the masjid for Fajr or Isha may be difficult, especially when others are sleeping or relaxing. But the one who sacrifices his comfort for the sake of Allah will be rewarded with light on a day when people will be desperate for even a small ray of guidance. The masjid, therefore, is not just a place of peace now, it is an investment for eternal light and safety on the most terrifying day. Inside the masjid, the believer feels close to Allah in a way that cannot be felt elsewhere. The atmosphere of purity, the sound of Quran, the rows of worshippers, all of this brings the heart into a state of serenity. The masjid cleanses the soul from the dirt of the outside world. Every sajda in the masjid is like washing away the burdens of life. Those who stay attached to it carry this peace with them even outside in their families, their work, and their interactions. It becomes visible in their character and their speech. This is why the companions of the Prophet used to long for the masjid. They knew it was the fountain of inner peace. But leaving the masjid brings the opposite effect. The further a person's heart is from the masjid, the more restless, anxious, and confused he becomes. Without the masjid, Salah is often delayed or even abandoned, Quran is neglected, and sins find their way easily into one's life. Slowly, the light of a man begins to fade, and a person wonders why he feels so distant from Allah. The answer lies in his neglect of the house of Allah. Just as a fish cannot survive outside of water, a believer's heart cannot remain alive without the masjid. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, understand that the masjid is your source of peace in this world and your source of light in the next. Hold on to it firmly. Visit it regularly. Let your children grow up within its walls. Let your heart become attached to it until you meet Allah. For the one who clings to the Masjid will never be left in darkness, neither here nor in the hereafter.